Okay, so if everybody could please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
Allegiance
to the
to the
flag
flag,
of the
United
United States of
States of
America
America,
and to the
to the
republic
republic
for which it
which
stands,
stands
one
one
nation,
nation,
under God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty
liberty
and
and
justice
justice
for all.
for all.
So welcome, everybody. I don't know, for some reason, it seems like we haven't done this for a while with everyone from the community in this format, at least. I know we've had a whole bunch of presentations, and certainly want to thank the entire administrative staff from central office down through the buildings for all of the work that they're putting in to keep everything kind of moving toward a hybrid opening and keeping everybody as safe as we possibly can and following the guidance and the protocols. And it's on top of what we're regularly asked to do, which is to educate children in the best environment possible. It's another just enormous task, and do want to appreciate all the time and all the effort that everybody's putting in. And I do want to thank the community for their turnouts on the presentations and in the thoughtful and respectful manner in which they've interacted over the last month. I know it's not an easy thing to do, and there's a lot of things that we have to remain flexible on, but the presentations that I was able to log into went very well, and I did appreciate the interaction from the community. So I just wanted to start with that. We do have our superintendent's report, and we have two things on that. Ron, I'm thinking that after the reopening plans, we'll open it up to questions specifically about that, and then we'll move on to the goals. Does that work?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Always happy to answer questions.
All right, so it's your show.
Hey, Bill,
Ron.
chance you could make me a co-presenter?
Sure.
All right, great. There are just a couple of documents I'd share. I can share screen already. Look at that. So I'll start with, I think if I go, let's see here. Actually, there's another document. That's the goals. All right, so we have, I guess I'll share this document. This is the K-6 instructional plan. And so, we worked very hard to put together a plan that we thought would accomplish as best we could a reopening of our schools. We're following a lot of things throughout the state, throughout the county, in our region that have been extraordinarily challenging with regard to opening. One of my colleagues described, creating these reopening plans as building a jigsaw puzzle in the dark, and I think it's almost like that, because every once in a while, then we get guidance and contradictory guidance, and it's been an extraordinary challenge. So I just want to thank all the teachers that helped us in terms of helping to come up with an idea for a good instructional plan, but especially my administrative team, who has worked tirelessly, and so they have really, spent the entire summer, foregoing, vacation time, working through honeymoons and things like that in the case of Dennis Ricci. But it really has been something that, nobody has shied away from the hard work. And I really, really am very grateful to have the team we have as administrators here, because every time we feel like we've solved one problem, it seems to, another problem seems to surface. So basically, I'll just use the 6 to 12 instructional plan as a basis. These are on our website. The idea that I want everybody to know, and we did go through very detailed reopening plans. Those included, I sat in on all of the reopening committees. Not only did we do our own forums, but we did forums that included each individual building, and took questions and answers from the community. And again, as Mr. Maxwell stated, I really want to thank the community for being 100% respectful and recognizing the difficult task that really is in front of us. Reiterating that every single decision that we make is based on health and safety first and foremost, that we cannot do the job we do if we can't, to the best of our ability, ensure the health and safety of our children in our schools, in our faculty and staff. So we start out, and I'll start. This is sort of a combined with our district goals and our instructional plan. We really recognize that every household looks different, and so that being said, we are very cognizant that we need to place equity at the forefront, and we tried to develop a plan for equitable instructional practices that really took into account that whether you are a two-parent household that has all kinds of means and has one child and can support that child with incredible support, or whether or not you're a single parent that is struggling to make ends meet and has multiple children. We know that circumstances are different. And so we tried to create a plan that really meets the needs of all. If you notice through our forums, there was also talk of our instructional calendar. And one of the things that struck us in our instructional calendar when we were talking to parents in these forums was that, Dr. Sarah, Dr. Reggio, Mr. Thode, Mr. Ricci, all the conversation was about making sure it was equitable. And lots of people talked about that. Some people have their own reasons for choosing. We came out, we were one of the first districts to come out and say, we will provide 100% distance learning option for parents. We felt that we needed to. That was our commitment to our students. So with that being said, we have students that will be home 5 days a week learning in front of a computer. We've also got students that are on a hybrid model that for the start of school year will be in 2 days a week. And so our initial calendar had us starting with an in-person day for one cohort, 2 days in a row, a day off for a deep clean, a single day, a day off for deep clean, and then 2 days in a row. And we looked at it and said, you know what? I think we can do better. And I think we could provide more equity. And the way we do that is we come out, and whether you're on distance learning or whether you're one of our kids that's on our hybrid and is going to be in person, we are going to treat everybody equitably. And the way we do that is we come out on the first day and we have an online digital learning day that is an orientation. And our orientation day is going to set the guidelines for what it looks like for everybody, so that it's not an in-person cohort getting something first and secondhand getting it to the online environment. We want all kids to get the same delivery on that first day, so that everybody knows that we're trying to come up with a plan that's a level playing field for all. And so we started this, one of our Board of Education goals that I'll speak to in a little while, it will be a focus on diversity, equity, and inclusivity, and making sure that we are doing everything we can as a district to promote equity amongst everyone in our community. So this is our commitment to equity, saying that basically we will provide the resources necessary for all students to be successful regardless of circumstances. We will provide support in the form of digital resources, physical resources like computers, and getting people Wi-Fi access, to also emotional support. So we want to support the academic, social, and emotional well-being of all kids. And to that end, we have focused on some things. The board will be creating a standing committee on diversity, equity, and inclusivity. And that is something that we believe we want to be very inclusive and make sure that we get lots of feedback from lots of different stakeholders on what are the things that we should be doing to incorporate best practices so that every student in the Center Milton School District can be successful. Last year, one of the first things we did when I arrived was join the Long Island Consortium for Excellence in Equity. And that is a consortium led by Dr. Bob Jarvis out of Penn University that focuses on the equity conversation. And we have been trying to bring that back into our school to enhance our school culture and climate. We believe that the affiliation with the International Baccalaureate and being a IB school in the middle school and high school helps us to understand that we are creating and placing a focus through the IB learner profile on students being caring, open-minded contributors in this ever-increasing, diverse, and globally interdependent world. So that is something that we certainly believe that we're going to keep a focus on. And then obviously we are looking at our instructional model of delivery and saying that we believe that instruction, and the administration believes, and that the synchronous instructional model, where we can have live teachers in front of children, whether they're at home or whether they're in a classroom, is the best model. However, we recognize that not everybody can participate in that, and that being able to actually take those videos and post them for later viewing is, doubly more effective, because anybody can then access those lessons. And even students who were in person can subsequently go back and revisit those lessons and reteach just from, reviewing their own teachers. I have a student that participated in distance learning, my daughter, who was a sophomore in college last year when the transition happened. And she thrived in the environment, and she told me that she thrived because of that ability to go back and revisit the instruction from her professors who were doing it in the college model. Then the second point on this is this idea of supporting educational program with this balance of social, academic, and emotional. And we will provide the technology resources, the devices, as well as support to any family to ensure equity. And in terms of social emotional learning, making our mental health professionals available for counseling support, whether they be in person or online, and making sure that we communicate those resources effectively. And then finally, about communication, and making sure that all of our district communications are done so in a way that provides outreach to all families. So providing outreach in the native language of each family, and making sure that we are getting feedback from parents, from teachers, from any of our stakeholders, to ensure that we are being flexible and in making sure that we're engaging in best practices and providing supports for our kids. So, that's our commitment. And then, as you go through, I talked about our preferred method of instructional delivery, and making sure that all kids have access to the same content and the same level of supports. That's no easy task, and I'm not going to say we're going to do it perfectly, but I can tell you that what we did in the spring was a tremendous learning experience for us, and what we're going to do in the fall is going to be a much stronger model, and one where we believe we can provide better for the students in our district. I'm going to go to another document I believe I have here. And actually, I guess I will stop there, and I'll stop the share for a second, because I know, George, you did say we could open it up for some questions. If anybody had specific questions, I'd be happy. There's the raise hand feature. Please feel free to, put your hand up. And does that mean I have to do that, Bill, I guess?
No, I can unmute them. We have one hand raised already.
Okay. Okay, Richard Wagner.
Okay.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for taking my question. I have I have a request and a question, and I'll make them quick. My request is I'd ask the board to consider making CHAMP available at no charge to the families during the AB course of teaching. I think it would be a very beneficial thing, especially given the early release schedule of the elementary school specifically. And my question is, I think it might be for Dr. Massara, but I'm sure the rest of the board could weigh in as well. And it'll help me to understand the equity portion of this. And it's a scenario, I guess, is the best way to describe it. If there were a way to have the elementary school children back in school 5 days a week, but the high school students, for whatever reason, were only able to do AB days, would that not be considered equitable in this plan?
You know what? I thank you for that. I mean, really. And, in terms of, the request for CHAMP at no cost, that we're pretty stressed, as you can imagine, under the circumstances. We are in a position where we're not facing fiscal distress, according to our, our comptroller, but at the same time, we're finding ourselves in a budgetary predicament where we're spending money in areas that we never thought we would have to. And we don't know if we have any offsetting savings. So, the additional burden, may not be something that we can withstand from a fiscal solvency standpoint. And it's something that I think we just have to continue to, take a look at and discuss as a board and discuss with Kerry Laughlin and see if there are things that we can do. I think that clearly, if there are people who, for whatever circumstances, have significant need, there are obviously things that we potentially could do to help support families who are in need. And I think that that's something that I would love to say that we could try to, in some way, help. So, I would put that out there, but, as a board, we have not had specific conversations about offering CHAMP for free.
Understood. Thank you.
Yeah, and, but clearly, that obviously would be the ideal. And as far as the equity issue, I think that secondary students are much more capable of, and again, we want everybody to be in person 5 days a week. I think that that's when we're most effective as a school. I believe that is the soundest instructional model. And we could take what we learned from this online, we could bring that in. And I think when we finally get 5 days a week of in-person instruction, and we can leverage the resources we've learned to use in the last 6 months, I think it's going to be extraordinary, the change that we're going to see in education and how powerful that's going to translate into the instructional delivery for teachers. And I say that wholeheartedly. So, that being said, I do believe that secondary students are more able to adapt, just by virtue of their maturity and by virtue of the fact that they have a greater ability. What we strive for, and in the International Baccalaureate model, is for students to be self-directed learners, students to take control over their own learning. But clearly, high school students are more capable of doing that. So when we talk about an equity issue, I think that, bringing the younger children in would be great. And, we just have a capacity issue, and that's the reality. Right now, I think that we are talking about a flexible plan. I would love to promise you that on September 21st, we're going to revisit that plan and say that one cohort's coming in 3 days a week and the other 2, and we're starting to transition to 5 days. I just don't know what that will look like. However, I would say that I would place a priority on bringing our youngest learners in person first. And that would be a priority for me. And I would not call that necessarily an equity issue. That's my perspective. The board would probably want to weigh in on that, and my administrative team may want to weigh in on that as well.
Sure.
But that's philosophically, that's where I'd be coming from.
Excellent. All right. I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you, Ron. That priority would be to get the elementary students in the classroom, and I don't see it as an equity issue. We're talking secondary versus elementary, and so philosophically, I would be on the same page with you.
I don't see any other hands here, Bill.
Nope, no other ones.
No. All right. Well, we do have 2 opportunities for public participation. One is for the items on the agenda, which will be coming up shortly after my next conversation, which is just an update on where we're headed in terms of goals. So I'm going to go back to a share screen, and I'm going to pull up last year's goal statement. And essentially what we did in terms of goals, I'll hide the sidebar, is we came up with a format, and we'll be following a similar format this year with the Board of Education to come up with district goals. And essentially we follow this SMART goal format. And what we look to do is we try to identify goals that are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. And they're guided by certain questions that you see on this screen. So last year we set them into 5 different categories. And I think that at least 4 of those categories are going to stay. And I think one of the categories will probably be merged into another. I think probably our goal number 1 this year, because we've seen a couple of things. We've seen unrest in our society in general. And we've seen circumstances that have created inequities, and clearly the pandemic has exacerbated some of those inequities in public education. And we believe that this idea of diversity, equity, inclusivity, and all those things I talked about before will likely be a standalone goal that will be in goal number 1. And we will build those out and really have, as I said, specific measurable goals that we can point to with regard to equity. So this is something that, I'd like to flesh out more with the board and have conversation about that. And then for, our September meeting, be able to have goals in a place where we can adopt them, and clearly one around diversity, equity, inclusivity. Second is this idea of a 21st century learning environment. We focused on a lot of different things about our capital plan and creating an environment, and last year was a different time. This year, I think one of the things we're doing when we talk about a safe learning environment, we're talking about a completely different thing. We were talking about adding more cameras, adding vape sensors in bathrooms. And now we're talking about what are we going to do to ensure the spread of disease, and to limit the spread of disease. So I think that we will need to be focused on a balance between providing the physical, emotional, and security for kids, with that idea of making sure our facilities are not just state of the art in terms of technology, but that's part of it. Making sure that the digital access is there for everybody. So here's where that equity conversation, although it'll be a standalone goal, will sneak into this 21st century learning environments. And so we will build that out a bit. We do have an energy performance contract that we've gotten approved. That'll be up in state ed. And we know that we want to be good environmental stewards as a district. And that's the kind of thing that helps us to do that, to utilize smart energy resources and save the taxpayers' money at the same time. And so our phase 1 of that project will begin. And we want to make sure that we're doing that effectively. We will be working we have new architects. So I think building in a goal to, acclimate those new architects and get them in and get our building condition survey report done in a timely manner is something that I think is going to be an important part of this as well. We did talk about establishing a capital reserve, and then also doing some enhancing positive school culture. We had a huge drive last year about hashtag CM positivity. And I think that that's something that builds in with the culture, but also doing some surveys and things like that to measure how we're doing in our school culture. And again, another one of those things that ties into our equity and inclusivity when we do a survey like that on school culture. And then in terms of the fiscal piece, we have, we have challenges, and we're going to have to build in the fact that we have hit another tremendous recession based on COVID. We're going to have to build into our financial planning what is the impact. So we will need to create another 4-year financial plan that factors in the idea that, hey, the bottom fell out. What happens if in November the governor makes a 20% reduction to our state aid a reality? The real challenges that we're going to have to build a plan for, and we're going to have to decide and make some very, very difficult choices if in fact we don't get federal backfill of money. So those kinds of things are going to be important for us. Strategic use of reserves. Recently, there was legislation passed at the state level that allows us to spend down our reserves for COVID-related expenses. There's a catch to that. It was not as flexible as possible, and those things need to be paid back in 20% installments over 5 years, repaid fully. Now, when we know that this is going to impact us over the next 2 to 3 to 4 years, potentially out to 2024, we may not have the ability to pay those things back. So we need to be very cautious and careful about how we are going to use those reserves. And I think we need to, and so all of this idea of fiscal and educational solvency is going to be very important. And I think that this particular goal might come out of the tax cap environment and say something about, being in a, real fiscal crisis across our entire nation. Oops, something's not going here. I'm having trouble making this. There it is. One of the things that we wanted to do, and we were fiscally constrained to do, was to get to that one-to-one initiative. However, knowing what we know, we're in a position where our capacity to get to that point is much greater. So what we need to do is we really need to, we did get a donation of some laptops. We purchased some laptops. So we're going to have about 400 more laptops this year than we had last year, or Chromebook computers, I should say. And I think it's important to note that, while we do have some that are nearing end of life in our inventory, we are in a better position to provide the resources and support necessary. And while I have some community members on the line, I would also state that we do have Chromebook Pickup scheduled for next week on Monday and Tuesday. So for people who need them, on Monday it will be an 8 to 2, and on Tuesday it will be a 3 to 7 pickup. So anybody that needs one for their children for distance learning, those are the first 2 days that we have for Chromebook distribution. But we are also looking at strategic ways to say how can we get get to that point where all students have it. One of the things that we're going to be looking at is a bring your own device policy as well. We believe that if we are in a digital learning environment, at least half our children are always going to be home at some point for at least the beginning of school. We will need students to be able to bring their devices in if they are to collaborate with those students who are at home in this kind of a learning environment. So some of the things that we're working on, and we want to make sure that we really build into our goals, because these are things that while they were on the radar, they weren't in the forefront of our thinking like they are at this time. So that's just another interesting point on that. This idea, these are the students as self-directed learners. Again, this idea of building capacity amongst our students and developing, using International Baccalaureate as a framework. We have found that it has created a common language K through 12, and utilizing the learner profile. We will be continuing to align to that, because we do believe that many of the tenets in there are really what we want to see in terms of teaching and learning. And we want to make sure we align our professional development. On goal number 3B here, you can also see the inclusion in the Long Island Consortium for Equity and Excellence. So I think you could see that the equity lens and the equity focus was already something that we were focused on, but we do believe that we were going to build that out as a standalone goal as well. Moving forward, last year at Superintendent's Conference Day, I saw that there were a couple teachers on the call. I don't have it in front of me, but I did see Miss Valentine. Hello there. My presentation was on the foundations of individualized learning. And I did a Superintendent's Conference Day presentation, and then we had some follow-up on that in breakout sessions. And I just believe that we really need to be focused on students as individuals. With our work in technology and the progress we've made there, we now have the ability to utilize technology and leverage technology resources to assess students with whether it be formative assessments or summative assessments, and find out information about kids so that we can assist them better in instruction. So the individual learning. And then,
Ron?
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt you here, but one of our conversations that we had previously with data with the
Yep.
Board of Ed, I'm thinking specifically, to what we talked about with the Board of Ed needing to be more involved, not necessarily at this granular level, but with district and systemic data and how it impacts the decisions that we'll have to make moving forward. Would this be an appropriate place, you think, to put it? This is more individualized education.
Yep. I think 100%. I think we want to be getting a picture. When we talk about data, we're talking about data from a number of different sources, and we want, the board should be informed, and we want the community to be informed that, hey, this is who we are, this is where we are, and this is where we're going. And those should all be data informed decisions. So we should know information about, and again, this is all a lot of these curriculum things clearly, George, and to everyone else out there. But in terms of what are those, what do those exit outcomes look like? What did they look like 10 years ago? What do they look like now? Where do we want to see them? What are our mastery rates in various areas, and how can we improve upon those mastery rates? Lots of different data sources, including some of the things that maybe can help us in our advocacy,
Right.
and trying to make sure that we are putting ourselves out there, and our community knows who we are, our legislators know who we are, and we can advocate for ourselves as a district.
So we can put that in here.
Clearly.
All right. And in the timely one, in the last box where it says annually, can we come up with a little bit more of a schedule there for when the board's going to take a look at these reports?
Sure. Of course.
I don't know if it's something we want to do quarterly. I don't,
Yeah.
when the presentation goes up, I only get to see Rod, so I don't know what the rest of the board is, what their responses are right now. But certainly several times a year, we should be discussing this. And it might take some time just to bring us up to speed on what these numbers mean, what they indicate.
Yeah, we're, right now, and there are some reports that we're working on, and we could clearly put some of those together that would, be more data centered. So absolutely, we can get that information. We can do a couple presentations. So I'll put my head together with Raina, who's working on some of that stuff now, actually, and see, what that looks like for, maybe an October kind of presentation. We'll get back to you on a timeline for that, and then some follow up at various times throughout the year and put it on a calendar.
Yeah. I think I'd like to have several presentations on that. So, at least 3, maybe 1 per quarter.
Yeah.
Type of thing.
On a timeline.
Tom, Robin, Marcus.
Great.
Yeah, agree. Quarterly in the timeline. Would be nice.
Okay.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, and then community engagement and communication. Clearly we want to make sure that the board is engaged. I think the community is engaged. We took a lot of steps last year, to try to leverage different things, but we don't want to stop there. And I think we've tried to get our message out there in any possible way we could, and I think, to a large degree, whether it be through social media, whether it be through video presentations, written communications, doing the live, we started for the first time doing live streaming of board meetings last year.
Yeah.
Clearly those turned into Zoom meetings, but at the same time, we were on a trajectory where we wanted the community engagement. The forums, we made sure, we're doing reopening, and we made sure, our governor was good at telling us what we had to do, but we were doing it before he told us what we had to do, and making sure that we were out there in front of our community, answering questions, and trying to be really transparent about what we were trying to accomplish, so that we could get the kind of feedback we wanted from our community. So I think the community engagement piece is going to continue to be tremendous, because it's the only way that we can build the kind of support and trust in our community for what we're trying to accomplish as a school, and and have the support we need in our community. Goal number 5, I think, is the goal that we can weave into some of the others, because it's really a standalone goal about our policy alignment. We know, and again, it's really as simple as priorities in terms of budgeting, and saying that, for the money it's going to cost to do a policy review, we'll live with our policy, because we want our money in curriculum and instruction and getting to the kids. So I think that's, one thing that, we could clearly put this in, one of those other goals, and weave it in, and have 5 good goals that really focus on, the other areas, and include policy alignment in there. That's basically, I think, where we're at. And I take some feedback from the board, with, I appreciate the comments on the data, because we talked about that in our retreat. But clearly, this is what we will be working on, to get something together for, for our final goals for the year, as we build the SMART goals out.
All right. So
Yep.
one of the things that just for me, very different school year, obviously, and um, some of these things that we have, the updating the 5-year capital plan, December 2019, with the list established by February 20. So anything that we have like that, that's time bound, that either should have been done or we were hoping would be done by a certain date this school year. Can we have a little deeper discussion of that and see those documents, whatever's completed, for our next conversation with regards to the goals? So if some of these things we can strike off the list.
Yeah, that's the presentation I had given you guys over the summer.
Yeah.
The slides presentation. So that's actually completed already.
So we could just go back over that and take a look at those.
Yep.
And strike off whatever we don't necessarily need on here anymore, or
Yeah.
if we need to take it a step further, we just reconfigure it,
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
I have to tell you, I do really like the format of these goals: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. We'll also have to go back and take a look at that other document, graduation goals and the assessment goals,
Yeah, that's gonna have to be.
and kind of update those as best as we can, right?
Yep.
Because some of those numbers and percentages certainly will be impacted by the type of school year that we had.
Yeah, I think George also and Ron, it might not just be a matter of revising the numbers. We might have to look and see, given the way we're teaching now, maybe there are other metrics we should be using. And I'm sure,
Yeah.
Everybody's got input on that.
Good point, Marcus.
Yeah.
Right, because we don't have Regents numbers to go off of from last year.
Nope.
And we don't have state assessments to go off of this year. So I don't even know, maybe Raina, this is a question for you. Without having that from last year, and everything is fluid this year, if there's some other type of formative assessments that we could use. You need to be unmuted. Write it down and show us on a pad.
And the gaps.
Yeah, I might have to mute myself because my
Okay,
one
thanks,
dog
Bill.
is starting to get.
No, it's usually a lot of background noise here. Yeah,
Yeah.
There are definitely things we can do. We have benchmark assessments that we have shared that data with the board in the past, and especially in elementary. As we move, and those are more, I would say they're giving, a snapshot at 3 different times during the year. We'll have that definitely elementary, middle school. We rely so much on the high school, departments do internal, and certain subject areas do internal assessments as they prep for their end of year. So it's more of internal data that we would rely on without the Regents exam. But we can certainly pull data, diagnostic data on all of our kids and, track them in a different way. As Ron said, multiple methods is the best way to really get a full picture. So we can definitely provide that information to the board as we use those pieces.
Good. And the other thing, Raina, I don't know that this is possible, but is there a way to use anecdotal evidence as well?
It's interesting because we could always pull things like, report card comments.
Right.
I review anecdotal, as an assistant principal, I would review anecdotal data if I had a certain scenario with a kid. There's definitely a way, and that's one of the things with, say, universal rubrics, IB rubrics, where we could, if they're using these assessment rubrics, project-based rubrics, where they are commonly used, could we pull that data? I mean, teachers are doing that intuitively and naturally if they come to the end of assignment and they do an item analysis. You can do, it doesn't have to be a multiple choice. It can be a writing assessment where we know that our kids struggle with, vocabulary and context or developing complex sentences. So from my perspective, that happens on grade levels, department levels, and sharing
I guess
some of that anecdotal data, I think, is the most powerful data
Yes,
you can share
I
with
agree with you.
parents, kids, board members, everything. So I love the numbers, but I think the most powerful thing, if you think about the most powerful thing for a kid, when they get written feedback, whether it's a math test, an ELA, an essay, a project, that written feedback has a significant impact, more impact often than the grade.
100%.
So I
guess
love that idea, and I
Yeah.
could run with that idea tremendously.
But I guess my question is there a way that we can do it without making it onerous for the teachers and taking away from instructional time and time with the students? You know, I wouldn't want this to be such a burden to them that they can't focus on
No,
their
I agree.
primary
It's challenging
responsibilities.
data to collect. It is.
Yeah.
Some of it, you know, it's they're writing it, or they're typing it, or they're, you know, making comments in a text box back to students.
Right.
They're doing it electronically.
Yeah,
I have to think about that. I mean, there's a way, you know, like if we have comments on a report card that are narrative comments, and I could kind of, if we're integrating some set types of, you know, increasing the level of, I don't know, specific nature of those comments, that's data we could easily pull that wouldn't put an undue burden on the teachers.
Right. Maybe we could just flesh that out a little bit more and, you know, their input as well.
I will definitely work on that, because there's a whole conversation, especially in this new world, about grading and assessment and everything. That's a piece of it.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
No problem. Thanks, Bill. I'm going to have to mute myself again.
Do we have any other comments, questions, concerns regarding the goals? Robin?
No.
You sure, Robin?
Yeah, this is a whole different format for me, so I'm still
Yes.
trying to wrap my brain around the whole
Right.
piece of it.
That's why I started with you.
I figured as much.
Tom?
Good, George, thanks.
Marcus?
No, I
Marcus?
think that's good. That's good. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Danielle?
Good. We just have to update everything.
Right.
We're good.
All right, good. So hopefully we could be on track to adopt them at our next meeting.
Yeah, well, we got to put them in, you know, adjust them, put them in a format, you know, in this format, and then drill into some specificity and get it out.
Okay, and then just for our next agenda, if we could have this, an opportunity to have a conversation about it if we need to.
Yeah, I think, you know, I mean, it's, you know, the task of reopening is pretty overwhelming right now, but we'll do
Yes.
the best we can to get it.
That's why I asked if we can. Ron.
Yep.
I'm, you know, very sympathetic to the amount of time that you and your staff and everybody in the district has been dedicating. So I get it. I get it. I just want, you know, I'll be on. It's wearing me out. I'd rather be on here talking about education and goals and children than testing and fevers and everything else. But you know, we have to do that. Kids won't learn if they're not safe and if they don't feel safe. So and I know it's difficult and I really appreciate it, but I don't want to lose sight of what our mission is.
Of course.
So if you could have this done by 8 a.m., that would be fantastic.
You got
And Raina, you can have until 8:30 to have the anecdotal piece. So, thank you.
That's tonight, George, or did you mean in the morning?
In the morning, Marcus.
Thank goodness.
I know you don't ever move. I feel like you sleep in that chair sitting straight up, but the rest of us need to rest a little, Marcus.
Okay, no problem.
Marcus, you disappeared, by the way.
Are you
All right, so
getting any video?
No, we're not. We're not even getting the person, the silhouette. We're not getting anything. So we're ready to go. We can move on to number 6. Questions and comments? Yes? Okay.
Yes.
So this is an opportunity for persons who wish to speak or have written letters to the board regarding topics that are included on this agenda. Speakers are asked to keep their comments brief and speak for no longer than 3 minutes. Members of the public will have the opportunity to speak about any topic at the end of the meeting. So I don't know if there's, Bill, if there's anybody with a hand up?
No hands raised yet.
Okay. I don't know if it's because it's the end of the summer or everybody is similarly a little burnt out, but
Yeah.
we only have 26 participants tonight. That's kind of low for what we've been having.
Yeah.
You know what? People have been participating.
Yes, they have.
So
They have.
there's been a
The rating-
lot of people
The
out there.
ratings are low, George.
Yeah, and the summer, they're my ratings, and the summer's coming to an end, and it's a beautiful night. So
Yeah.
hopefully they're out doing something. Okay, they can always watch the video, right?
Yes.
So I think I do number 7. Janine, just so you know, Pat would always kind of tell me what I'm supposed to read and what she reads. I think I do number 7.
I think, yeah, I do a motion to accept the minutes from the last 4,000 meetings.
Yeah,
So I think that you make the motion to accept
Yeah.
minutes and
All right.
seconds, and then
You- I think you start with the consent portion, right? Am I the only one having trouble hearing Janine?
No, I can't hear.
No, I can't.
Okay.
Okay.
So Janine, I'm going to do number 7. You're all frozen and breaking up audio.
I
So
believe so.
yeah, I'm going to do number 7. So a motion to adopt the minutes from the special meeting of June 30th, 2020, the reorg meeting of July 1st, 2020, the regular meeting of July 1st, 2020, the special meeting of July 16th, 2020, special meeting and exec session of July 23rd, 2020, special meeting and exec session of July 27th, 2020, special meeting of August 3rd, 2020, and the special meeting exec session of August 18th, 2020. Motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second,
All in favor?
yes.
Yes.
Yes. Motion carries unanimously. I don't even see Janine anymore.
Bill told me to take away my video and maybe help my connection some. I'm gonna put my video back on. Let's see if it works.
No, that's okay.
All right.
Do you want me to just,
Leave your video off, Janine.
It's a
better with the video off.
I could just keep doing the agenda. Is that all right if I just keep doing it?
Section 8. I don't mind at all. I just have
Oh, no, we
on
can.
your, just when you get down on the bottom, item was left off consent agenda, but not on purpose. I just didn't asterisk it. The opt-in agreement with the school bus staff arm enforcement.
The stop on camera agreement.
And then I believe at the end. So the consent agenda
You
will
want me to
carry you
read
all
it?
the way down to true item number 20.
Okay,
Did you want me to read it?
I could do it. And I said okay to Janine, but I didn't really hear what she said, just so everybody knows. So I'm going to do the consent.
Now I'll read it.
Terry, you know we have to work on, right?
Be it resolved, a motion to approve the consent agenda, asterisk agenda items are consent agenda items. Consent agenda items are approved via a single vote unless they are removed from being consent item prior to the vote. Motion,
Motion.
Motion.
second,
Second,
Yeah.
all in favor?
yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Motion carries unanimously. So, I do want to take the time to thank our retirees for their service, dedicated service to our community, and those that have resigned as well. We really appreciate it. And I'm hoping Pat's not listening, that she's out enjoying the evening. But by the same token, I do want to thank Pat very much. I enjoyed getting to know her through the process of the Board of Ed meetings and sitting next to her. And it's she's a person that I would not have known otherwise. So I do wish her the best of everything in retirement, and I am going to miss her quite a bit, sitting next to me and keeping me on the straight and narrow. She never ever did do the Pledge of Allegiance though for us, so maybe we can have her back in as a guest once to do that. So thank you, Pat.
Thanks, Pat. We miss you.
George, I also want to jump in for Mrs. Cruiser and Mrs. Thompson. Mrs. Cruiser, when I was the guidance secretary, and then now she's been in the middle school for my daughter, and I really just an absolute asset when I was a student and as a parent, and we're going to really miss her as well. And then Mrs. Thompson was my math teacher when I had her for course 1 back in the 90s. Tremendous math teacher, and really just, you know, an amazing asset for our district. And the loss, she just really, I'm going to miss her. I think a lot of people are going to miss her. She's had an amazing career here, and I thank her as well for her service to all the students at Center Riches.
Thank you, Robin.
Agreed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Ron, we got that, the email with that resolution.
Right. Janine, you have
I
that.
have the resolution. If I can read it.
All right. So
Exactly, Janine. Am I the only one who's still having issues here?
Can't hear her.
No, I can't hear you.
Okay.
Not coming
As long as
from
I
the-
know it's not just me.
we all are.
Yeah,
I lost
Janine,
my Chromebook. I guess it doesn't work. Can anyone hear me? I'm gonna read the resolution.
Oh, now I can hear you.
Yes.
yeah, we can hear you now.
Here we go. Resolved that upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, the Board of Education approves the agreement between the district and the employee named on Schedule A and authorizes the Board President and Superintendent to sign the agreement contingent upon the employee executing the same. Do you solicit a motion, George?
Yeah, motion,
Motion.
second,
Second.
all in favor?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Motion
Yes.
carries unanimously. Ron, are we allowed to
Right. Now that it has passed.
explain it?
Mhm.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So I think the parents on the call and if any kids are on the call, will be very pleased to know that, while we were not successful in securing a permanent high school principal in our search that began in August, the board has named Mr. Jeremy Thode as an interim principal for the high school for through January of the coming year, while we initiate a full search to try to find a replacement for Mr. Caswell. And I think that, exemplified in the work that Mr. Thode did to recognize the class of 2020, as well as all the heavy lifting he's been doing to keep to move the high school toward reopening with the student meetings, with the parent meetings, and certainly with the staff meetings. I've been able to sit in on all of those, and certainly our high school is in wonderful hands with Mr. Thode at the helm, for this temporary basis through January. So
Okay.
thank you.
Yep. Thank you for explaining that, and thank you for Jeremy to stepping into that. We do appreciate it. Ron, under the contract section, is there anything in there you feel we need to talk about? Any changes?
Yeah, there is one significant change I think that we'd probably want to bring up and let the community know. One of the contracts that's in here is a change in our bus service. Montauk Bus Company has entered an agreement, Attleworth Bus Company has entered an agreement with Montauk Bus Company and Montauk Bus Service for sale of their routes. This was contingent upon an approval by our district to allow this sale of routes because, again, it greatly impacts us. Carrie and myself sat down with Montauk Bus, and we have in writing that they were honoring the types of credits and the conditions of the contract. And so we felt it was in the best interest. There will be no additional cost to us. I am familiar with Montauk Bus Service as well as Carrie Laughlin. So we do believe that we will have quality bus service and hopefully, maybe some some added benefits like cameras on our buses and things like that that hopefully will serve us very well. So that is a significant change in our, we had, and I'd like to thank Adelworth for upwards of 25, 30 years worth of service for our district. But under these uncertain times, I think they felt it was a good business move for them. And given the fact that we have the assurances in hand, this will work out fine for us as well.
Yeah.
But-
Okay. So, I'm glad that you thanked Adelworth. They've been with us a long time. But I just want to be clear that there's no impact at all to the routes that we're able to run. There's no additional cost to the school district at all.
Yeah,
Everything is staying. The
Yeah.
only thing that's changing is the company.
So, to be clear, there definitely are changes, but they're not related to the bus change, to the bus company change. They're related to the fact that we're running different cohorts, which means that on our red days, we're running different routes than our white days, and things like that. But conditions of the contract will remain the same, and we expect the level of service to be just as just as high.
Ron, you mentioned that the buses that they run are going to be fairly newer than our worths, correct?
And the buses are actually newer. The equipment is newer than the buses as well.
Okay.
We've been assured of that. Yes.
Okay.
So, trying to think if there's anything else on here.
And Ron, this also ties into the stop arm camera agreement, correct?
Right. Correct. There is an agreement in here that is at no cost to us. One of the
119.
Agreements in here is an intermunicipal agreement with the Suffolk County for installation. The county would cover the cost of installation of stop arm cameras to protect the health and safety of our kids. And it is something that, the county was taking upon themselves. And many districts in the county, I don't have a precise number. This was an agreement that was obviously vetted large scale by Gersio and Gersio, as well as other local law firms that service many districts in the county. Will allow our buses to have the stop arm cameras on them. Not sure when that'll happen. Different companies are in the queue for the supplier. I believe, if I recall, Montauk Bus is third in the queue, or fourth maybe. So we can anticipate sometime in the fall or maybe winter. Given changes in transportation routes and things like that, I'm not sure what their capacity is to be able to install.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Great. So that brings us down to questions and comments from the community, I believe, right? So members of the public who desire to address or question the board on any topic related to board work are welcome to do so. Speakers are requested to limit their remarks to no more than 3 minutes, to appoint a spokesperson if there's a large group, supplement verbal presentations with written reports if necessary or desired. So if you have any of that you want to talk to us about, please use the hand raising function. Bill will get you up and rolling. What do we got, Bill?
Nobody yet.
Just a final thank you to the community. This certainly has been a challenging time, and in 13 days, we're going to be looking to open the doors to a new school year, a school year like no other. But our community has been extraordinary in their support for our schools. So I feel really blessed and fortunate to have, just to be working in just a great place that, that values, what we're trying to accomplish here and is 100% behind us. So it's really wonderful to see.
No hands.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you. Sorry, no hands raised yet.
All right. So then the next Board of Ed meeting, as of right now, will be on September 16th, 2020 at 7 p.m. at the district office. And certainly if we find the need to meet in between, we'll let the community know. Motion to adjourn into executive session.
Oh my goodness.
everybody's
I
all
hope
right.
everybody's okay.
Yeah, I don't know who that was, but I hope everybody's okay.
Didn't raise their hand, though.
Try again. Motion to adjourn into executive session for the purposes of discussing personnel, the disclosure of which might result in an invasion of personal privacy. Motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second,
All in favor?
yes.
Yes.
Yes. Motion carries unanimously. So, Ron, are we using the previous invite? Or are you going to send us a new one?
I think we could probably jump on the previous invite. I'll just go back in and open that meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
Should be able to.
All right, it's 8:13. Can we take a couple of minutes in case anybody has to use the facilities or anything?
Sure.
So 8:20?
Okay.
Sounds
All right,
good.
we'll see everybody back in exec at 8:20. Thank you very
Thanks.
much. Thanks,
Thank
Bill.
you.
Thanks, Janine.
Welcome, thank you.
Janine, you don't have to reply because I wouldn't understand it anyway, but thank you.